welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sara.
And I'm Allie.
And we are here to wrap up the 4 games of the quarterfinals. There are only 4 games left in this tournament.
I was like, can you believe we're finished the quarters already? That we're on
This is
to the
always what
semis.
happens. I feel like there's so much soccer to go, and then the moment the quarters happen, I'm like, oh my God, it's over. Anyways, this is maybe an hour after the final quarterfinal ended, so congratulations are in order to you, my friend. How are you feeling right now?
Better, like, through that game, and we'll talk about when we talk about the game, I felt sick for most of it, and then I really needed to pee, but I couldn't leave, so I was sat there, like, just, and then I was drinking more coffee to, like, try and steady the nerves, so therefore I needed to pee more, and then it was just like, and then literally it's like, final whistle went, I was like, I'm done, I'm out.
I can always tell how stressed you are because your text messages stop.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like a slew of texts, and then it's just like silence. Just silence. That's when I know Allie's really going through it. But we're not going to jump into it immediately. As always, I love how at the World Cup we get to kind of like, we get to jump into, I don't know, the vibes of it all to begin with.
I was going to say, I want some Aussie updates. Tell me what's going on over in Australia.
I honestly don't remember what I said last time, so you're going to have to tell me if I'm repeating myself. Did I go through what I've like learned? A few Aussie things that I've learned?
Apart from the fact that it's Melbs, not Melby. No, you have not.
Okay, first of all, there's no drip coffee here. Like, I don't think you guys are different about coffee also, because that was some weird stuff that I experienced last summer with like some stir-in coffee. I don't want to talk about it.
It's instant coffee, but yeah.
But for anybody in the US, there's no drip coffee here. Like, I make my drip coffee every morning. Everything here is espresso based. So you don't have like, if I order a black coffee, it's not drip. It's like an Americano. It's espresso based.
Yeah, we don't.
It blows my mind.
Australia's like England. We don't do drip coffee. It's all espresso coffee.
Was I drinking espresso coffee in England unknowingly?
Yes. Yes, you were, because your girlfriend bought me one. So yes, you were.
There are no like rogue kangaroos. And I know that sounds really trivial, but it does upset me. So anybody listening, I just want to see a kangaroo. I don't need to be close to one, but I don't want to see one in the zoo. So I know that sounds like such a dumb American thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. I've never seen one. I don't think I've even seen one in the zoo, but I want to see one driving down the street and it hops across the road. You know what I mean? Anyways, that doesn't happen here, at least not in Sydney.
I was going to say, I think you need to go a bit further out.
Yeah, that's what everybody's telling me. The final piece I've learned is that while it is winter, I have yet to come on a place that has heating. Like, I checked into my hotel room and they told me how to turn the air conditioning on. But it's 10 degrees Celsius here. I don't want air conditioning, but there's no heat. It's been all right though. I think that that's everything. That's all I can think of right now. I mean, the Asian food has been unreal. I haven't broken any more bones, so that's been great.
You saw a whale?
I saw a whale. It was unreal. Yep. In between games, I went on a little whale watching thing. I do feel the need to say in this moment that to anybody who donated, anything that's like an excursion that's not like, you know, survival based in terms of, you know, like getting to games, food and water, that's all coming out of my own personal pocket. You're not funding that. Don't worry.
Yeah, you've not funded Sarah to go for a whale watching.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Or for me to like travel 100 miles outside the city to see a kangaroo. Maybe at some point I'll say we'll post like the full breakdown of where all the money is going, but it's to games, transportation, food, water, housing, and flights. I don't think anything, and to pay our editor Mike. I guess my only final update is that I went to Manly Beach. It's beautiful. I love it. I texted my girlfriend. She told me to call it Womanly Beach. I don't know the history of why it's called Manly Beach, but we can refer to it as Womanly Beach for this podcast. I got a little lost. I accidentally hiked about 8 miles. But I had a lovely time. It was a gorgeous lookout. I highly recommend it to all.
You have a little gripe, though, about your shopping experience.
I did. That's true. Thank you for reminding me. So naturally here at the World Cup, there's a lot of World Cup merch, and that's amazing. I picked up some swag for the whole team here, and then I was like, I am always on a mission to get some really good women's soccer shorts, like soccer shorts that were made for hips and not just like the straight leg men's shorts that we have to wear that don't fit any of us well. And so I went on a hunt for it, and I'm so disappointed in FIFA, not surprisingly, but they're selling team shorts, but they're all in men's sizes. This is the Women's World Cup, so that's my gripe. I just have to put that out there. I want everybody to know.
I feel you. I do. I feel you because it's the same in the Euros as well.
Yeah, truly. Well, that's not true, actually. I found some great England shorts in the Euros, which I'm not going to lie, at some point today I thought about burning.
Wow.
No, I quickly thought to myself, that's ridiculous. You spent good money on those and they fit you really well. And I don't hate England, okay? I'm not a bitter Betty here.
I was going to say, Sarah's turning into a lemon right now.
Anyways, those are my Aussie updates. What are your Manchester updates?
My Manchester updates. It's raining. Surprisingly right now. I was like, I'm going to go for a walk after this. I'm not going for a walk after this. Yeah, no, it's good. Like, the games are a good time for us, which is always helpful.
What's been the atmosphere there? Like, does it feel, obviously it's not going to feel like the Euros because the Euros were there, but does it feel like it's a continuation of the excitement?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm in women's circles, so we're all really excited. What I am finding is I'm getting a lot of people, which happened in the Euros and happening now, is asking me questions and being very excited to find out things about the games and stuff. So, like, I was in my office at work and we watched, like, back-to-back games and everybody's like, oh, we're watching Australia versus whoever it was. And they're like, oh, tell us about the Australian players. Tell us about... Because, like, I'm the aficionado of women's football in my office.
I love that. I appreciate that all of them, no matter their gender, men, women, anything in between, don't assume to know something simply based on their gender. A little foreshadowing for what we're about to talk about.
Absolutely not. So yeah, so that's been really fun and nice for me, is that people are interested. And like, people are like, oh, you have a podcast, I should listen to it. I'm like, yes, you should listen to my podcast. And like sending that around the office and stuff. So it's been quite nice. And then finding out that other women's football fans in the office are like the two HR girls that we've got. Shout out to Harriet and Kim in my office because they're like super excited.
Yeah, Harriet and Kim.
Like super excited. So yeah, shout out to them that are like super excited to watch with me.
Those are always good vibes. When the game's on in the office, it's always good vibes. All right, so before we get onto the games, we do want to talk about something that's necessary and definitely more serious. As everybody who listens to this podcast knows, obviously we're here to cover the game, the women's game, but part of covering the women's game is covering on the field and off the field. And this is a moment where we have to spend a few minutes to talk about some off-field stuff. I don't know. I don't really know where to start with this, to be totally frank, because like I'm just going to be blunt. Like I said to you, Allie, before this, like, I'm really aware right now of trying, I don't want to come off like a bitter Betty, because that's really not where what we're about to talk about is coming from. Like, this is purely coming from, I think, both of us feeling a big protection over the women's game and how to protect the safe space that it is as it grows. And what we're going to come on to is kind of how that relates to the narrative around the United States right now, and like why in the world the United States is still in everybody's mouth, other than obviously the fact that, you know, the U.S. has won 4 times, you know, arguably the favorites, even though haven't played well in many years. Like, we get it. Like, other than there being a massive target on their back for obvious reasons, like why the U.S. is still coming out of everybody's mouth, when frankly, I think we've forgotten about every other team that's exited this tournament. So I don't really know where to start. Maybe we can just start with like the protection of women's football, because I came back and listen, I had the best night ever at these games. I'm so excited to talk more about the atmosphere and like share really what the vibes were around the stadium, because it was, I was texting people, I think I texted this to you too, Allie, like it was a spectacle in the best way. Like, I was just so happy. I think I sat down in a seat next to my friend and just went, I'm so happy right now. Like, with that being said, there were moments that truly broke my heart that were things that I had never seen in the women's game before. And I came back and kind of said to you, like, I hadn't seen that before. How do you deal with that when you encounter that in either the WSL, and you said you actually don't see it in the WSL? So I don't know where to start, if I should just tell some stories, or I don't know.
No, I get what you mean. So, like, we police it really well in the WSL, I do have to say. And I'm taking this from a West Ham perspective. We do police it. We've had it, especially when we come up against, like, teams that are our men's rivals. We police it, because we've had it before where there's been some chants at Chelsea that the menus that are very homophobic, and we've shut that down very quickly at the women's game, and we stop that. So we do shut it down. I saw it more in the Euros, because I see it more, not at club football, at country level, because that's when people pop up, once every 4 years to support their country. And I'm going to be honest, I'm like that with men's football. I will pop up and watch England in the Euros or the World Cup, but I don't follow them in any other tournament or any other capacity. I am that 1 in 4 for men's football. So we are seeing it more and more where these people are like, especially in England over the Euros, because obviously we won, and it's the first time England have won anything since 1966. So it was a huge moment. It was a huge moment. So yeah, so we are seeing more of these people popping up and taking the men's mentality to the women's. And I want the passion, don't get me wrong. I want that, like, my country sort of passion, but I don't want the negative aspect to come with it. And that's what we need to police and stop before it takes hold.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And I ran into a few moments tonight that were kind of heartbreaking in that way. And it's funny because I was saying to you, Allie, like, that was the first time I'd experienced something like that, because in the US, the men don't feel an ownership over this sport like they do in other countries. They feel an ownership over it like men do with everything, because they're men, but not specifically because it's soccer. You know what I mean? Anyways, I guess I'll just share a couple things, because I think it's important to shed light on kind of like what's going on here. And I'll say again, like, overall, 99.9% fantastic. And then there were moments. For example, everybody was watching the Matildas game before the England-Colombia game. Everybody was outside the stadium. It was just an incredible atmosphere. And there were a few people who, I don't know, should I name their nationality? Should I not?
Go on, do it.
I feel like I'm going to come off as a bitter Betty.
I'll do it for you. They were English. They were English lads.
And we saw Wendy Renard go down, and they were booing her. And I kind of turned to them and I tried to police it a little bit and say, hey, like, you can root for the Matildas. I'm rooting for the Matildas, but, like, root for your team. You don't have to boo the other team. That's kind of like how we do this in women's soccer here. And that wasn't met with a great response. And then, cut to 20 minutes later, and Wendy Renard flashes on the screen, and I hear, put your hair up. And so I turned to them and I was just like, who said that? That's so fucking racist. And nobody wanted to take accountability, but things like that. Leaving the stadium, there were just gestures. But, I'm not trying to come across like that should never happen, and everybody in women's soccer is like, a saint and everybody's incredible. But those are things that kind of, they broke my heart just a little bit.
No, we do need to talk about it, because you've said it before. And, okay, yeah, social media is a cesspool half the time. But we are seeing the most negative and nasty, it's not just negative, it's nastiness that is coming out on social media about, and and you're saying it's feeding into do you want to talk about the US and briefly about the stuff that's happening?
Unfortunately, I feel like we kind of have to. And I'm going to say again, like, up front here, I'm a little nervous to talk about this, because I'm very gun shy right now of social media, and I'm very aware that, like, everybody in the world perceives the US fans as being just, like, super bitter right now. And I guess this is mainly to explain perhaps why, if US fans seem a little extra sensitive, why that is. Now, you mentioned everything seems a little bit more negative. I didn't have a Twitter 4 years ago in the last World Cup, so I don't know. I don't have something to compare it to. It feels very negative on Twitter too right now. Like, even the banter is getting personal. And You texted me something the other day. I don't remember. I think during the Sweden game, like, hey, can we post? Can I want to post this. And I was like, please don't. Like, I just don't want to be involved in the US chatter on Twitter. And I guess this is just to kind of explain maybe why we haven't been involved in it. So I think we mentioned on our last episode a little bit about Fox Sports. And I think everybody knows what Fox is. They are a right-wing political machine, frankly. They're a propaganda machine for the right wing. And when Fox Sports first picked up coverage of the World Cup, it was in 2015. So this is only their third World Cup. And there is a stark difference between how they covered the World Cup in 2015 and how they're covering the World Cup here in 2023. And you can draw a direct line and a direct correlation to how their news coverage has changed from being slightly right-wing to an absolute propaganda machine for the Trump base. Like, I'm just going to fucking say it. So the main criticism of the US right now, it feels like, from the outside, and this is where, like, I'm really happy that we have each other here, because you can tell me if this perception is wrong, but it certainly feels like a lot of the criticism is around, oh, well, like, you're going to be so arrogant and you're going to be so, I mean, arrogant is really the word. You're going to be arrogant and then you're going to go cry when you lose and we make fun of you, basically. And would you say that's correct?
I would say that's correct. I do think that is what is being said. I have a reason why I think it is, but I'll let you carry on. And then...
I mean, I think I can easily see what it is. The Fox Sports promo, which we've talked about before, I hated that when it came out. Still hate it to this day. But I think that's a really good example of, like, Fox propaganda taking over the narrative of the U.S. women's national team, and it so deeply hurts me. So I think that there's two things to talk about here. The first thing is, I guess let's just go that direction. And very bluntly, like, it is not just triggering, I think, to U.S. fans who are so deeply, like, in love with the U.S. women's national team, when people come at the U.S. for, quote unquote, not being humble. It is deeply upsetting because we can see what nobody outside the U.S. should be able to see, because nobody's having to watch Fox Sports' coverage of the U.S., of the World Cup outside the U.S. But what we can see is that really what it is doing is enabling the right-wing media's main data point to back up all of their misogynistic and homophobic things that they are saying about this team, and any discord on Twitter that kind of, like, plays into, oh, the US aren't humble and so F you. All it does is feed these right-wing trolls, and it becomes a very toxic, isn't even the word, like, very, very dangerous narrative that is just feeding the misogyny, feeding the racism, feeding the homophobia of the right wing in the United States. And Fox Sports has somehow been able to grab a hold of the U.S. women's national team, which has historically been everybody's. Like, it was a great equalizer. It was just all positive. And they've somehow been able to grab a hold of that and make it a political tool to talk about things from the right-wing perspective. And that is so upsetting to people like me, because mainly fans of the U.S. women's national team are liberals, are gay, are black, are people who don't watch Fox Sports. So it's this combination of the fact that Fox has taken it and they're using it for their own political gain, and they're using it to peddle narratives that none of us agree with. And then the fact that the rest of the world, yay, like, all of that banter is super fun, until there's this undercurrent of the Fox Sports that we then also have to experience on top of it. And then it becomes hard to separate. And I think that's just important for people not in the US to hear. It just becomes difficult to separate the banter when we are talking about that word of arrogance versus, like, humility.
Well, the thing is, right, because you put this in the notes, so I've had a while to, like, percolate and think about this. I think the problem is coming from an international perspective, because you're right, we don't watch the Fox News coverage, we've got our own. It's very, very hard to separate the players from the propaganda. It is, because it's their face. The fact that I know it's not Alex Morgan, but the end film of that Fox propaganda, it just conjoins the two, and it just does. And I am in my head, I know it's not them. I know for a fact it's not them. I know that they have been brought in by Nike, who did that Sophia Smith advert, and they've been brought in by Fox News to make that advert. And the whole arrogance thing, I think it comes from, I'm only going to compare it to the England coverage, but we've got brands that have used the Lionesses in their adverts, but it feels very much from an England's perspective, it's go team, go Lionesses, you can be as good as a Lioness, off you go. Whereas the stuff we're getting and the stuff that's feeding through from the Americans is crap on all the opposition. Like, screw you, we're the US, which is a Fox thing. I'm not going to say it's not, but that's where I think people are getting really frustrated and irritated, because it's like, whereas other media seems to be rising up their team, it seems to be the Fox aspect and the American aspect is crapping down rather than uplifting up.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you said that, because it's funny, because what filters through to me from England is all of the England fans saying, we're better than all of you, it's coming home, F you. It's all only the negative that filters through to me. But, like, I'm so glad you said it, because that's, I think, on the few times where I've accidentally clicked on Twitter and started scrolling and then just wanted to cry and log off. But before wanting to cry and log off, a lot of what I've seen is between US fans and England fans, a lot of what the US fans are saying is exactly trying to combat what you just said, Allie. And it's trying to separate the two, because we here in this country, we see these players year in and year out. We see them in the NWSL. We know that they are not the propaganda that Fox peddles about them. But I think the irony that US fans are seeing here is that actually any of us who followed the team for 3 years, most of us went into this tournament saying that getting to the semis would be a win. I don't know, maybe this just leads us on to this conversation around the fact that, like, humility and confidence and arrogance have been really big buzzwords this tournament. And it really bugs me why we're even talking about this at all. Like, it feels very misogynistic to me whatsoever. You know, the fact that Berenstein came out and said those things before the game, great, good for her. Like, if you want to say that, all the more power to you, because that's, in my opinion, is going to make it harder on you. I don't care if, like, I love that. Like, let's have players being those personalities. That's why people love Megan Rapinoe. Like, come out and say it, and then be able to take it when it comes back on you, but come out and say it. And nobody should be, sorry for the lack of a better word, but shitting on any of these players for being confident. Nobody should be calling them arrogant. Arrogance and humility should not be words in our vocabulary about this World Cup, because all those words are just words that frankly reek of misogyny to me. We're not talking about how a year ago some Argentinian player did like an incredibly obscene gesture with a World Cup trophy on worldwide television. How many billions of people saw that? That's the most arrogant thing I've ever seen in my whole life. And nobody talked about that. Everybody was like, ha, 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 ha. Like, it's just dripping with misogyny. And I never want to hear anybody call a player arrogant in a negative way ever again, because all it does is drip with misogyny. If you have an insult, find a different one, because I just want to get that word out of our vocabulary.
Well said. Hear, hear. Sarah for president. Should we get into some games? Should we talk about some football? We have to start with the game, which is, for me, Australia versus France.
Was that really the game for you?
Yes, this is one of the best games.
Yeah, it really was. Was it because you could enjoy it? Because you could go to the bathroom when you needed to?
There was a little bit of that, though I did feel sick during the penalties, but that's because penalties just make me sick.
I mean, yeah. Truly, I think, shall we stamp game of the tournament on this?
Yes, for me, it was 100% the game of the tournament. And everybody's going to be like, but it was a 0-0 and it went to penalties. I'm like, yes, but that was the calibre.
I didn't even remember that it was 0-0. That's how good it was. I was like, wait, that was 0-0?
Yeah, the calibre of this game. All of the play, like, oh, it was beautiful.
So the Matildas won in penalty kicks 7-6. I don't remember what it went to. Did it go to 9 people?
10.
I wasn't counting.
There were 10 rounds of penalties. This is the longest penalty shootout in tournament football, male or female, ever.
Round of applause.
This is like, this World Cup, we said it before, are setting like records and everything else. But yeah, it went to 10 rounds of penalties to get to a 7-6 win for the Matildas.
I don't think that my heart rate has settled, and that was like 4 hours ago.
It was crazy.
It was absolutely wild. Matilda's fans listening, I don't know how you endured that. French fans listening, my condolences. What a heartbreaking, just a terrible way to go out. I honestly, that's worse than how the U.S. went out this tournament. It just is. That is utterly heartbreaking. But the home team, the Matildas, took it, and we knew this was going to be a match because these two teams played in a friendly right before the World Cup happened, and it was spicy to say the least.
Yes, everybody knows that image of was it Le Sommet?
It was Kennedy. It was Kennedy. For those listening, Allie's laughing because I just gestured like the throat grab.
And so we were like, wow, okay, round 2. And it's not going to be friendly because it's tournament football.
It was such a good game. I don't even know where to start with this. Where do you want to start with this?
Let's talk about the home team. Let's talk about the Matildas because they had a game plan and it was beautiful. Like, it was beautiful. So we knew that basically they were very sneaky, the Matildas, in the fact there was lots of press being like, oh, well, if she's fully fit, Sam Kerr's course going to start. Yes, Sam Kerr. Like,
they've been real sneaky with that this whole tournament. I really like it.
She's going to get minutes. You know, she's Sam Kerr. But the key word in that was if. If she's fully fit, she will start.
Yeah.
But
and we all knew she wouldn't be.
But I don't think the French team did. I think the French team did their game plan about having to shut down Sam Kerr, and for 45 minutes, that's not what they have to do, so it put them on the back foot. Like, it was some great French football, do not get me wrong, France fans. I think you played phenomenally, but what Australia could do was then be like, well, we're going to utilise these wings because they're going to think we're going to go down the middle with Sam, and we can use it. And they, like, just brought the game to the French team, I have to say. Some incredible defensive work from the French team to keep it at 0-0 at half-time.
Incredible defensive work across the board in this game. Moments where I can't believe it remained 0-0. I have to say, in the first 10 minutes, I was worried. I thought Australia came out on the back foot. I thought that they were shaky, but they grew into this game in such a beautiful way. And there's such a mental fortitude to a team who can come out honestly that shaky. There was a moment where they were just millimeters, frankly, away from going down 1-0 in those first 15 minutes. And they can come out like that and slowly, confidently build back into that game. And boy, did they ever. And I think you're totally right. You know, by the end of the first 45, the Matildas were flying. Absolutely flying. And there's something interesting about the fact that, you know, Sam Kerr in this injury, the way that they've handled it, it's actually become such a positive for this team, both on the field and off the field. We can talk about that more, but it is just, yeah, it's such a credit to, I guess, like I said, their mental fortitude.
Yeah, and it's given other players a chance to shine and get into that lexicon because, like, we talked about it before, but Hayley Raso, my goodness, what a tournament Hayley Raso is having at the moment. She was the big winner for me in this game. Like, she had so much pace and spark going forward. She was the one that was getting at the French players. She was the one that was drawing out the fouls and winding them up and everything else. She was just out of this world, Hayley Raso.
You know who else actually I think came into her own in this game? Caitlin Ford obviously has had an incredible tournament. I haven't seen her play out of her skin like she has been in this tournament, but the person who came into her own in this game for me was Mary Fowler. What she was able to create and the confidence that she displayed on the ball up top in those moments where it was a lot of difficult hold-up play against a tough French back line, and what she was still able to create, and like I said, the confidence she displayed, I think this was like her breakout game. And obviously tucking that gorgeous penalty kick away, this might have been the breakout Matilda's game for Mary Fowler, who's obviously been in the shadows and she's been good but not great in this tournament so far. This game, she came through.
Yeah, I do think there were some times where she should have been a little bit less selfish. Like, there was a couple of times where she could have laid it off to Ford and they could have maybe won it in time. But the thing is, what's showing me with Fowler is saying, like, for her club team being like, play me, because I am the player that you need. And for such a young player, she's such a talent. And yeah, like I said, really coming to her own in this tournament. Like, absolutely phenomenal.
She really has. I mean, while we're on the Matildas, you alluded to this, you know, when we mentioned Sam Kerr, and we've talked about this about Australia before, so I'm going to bring it back. In the first game of this tournament, we saw them play a style as if they had Sam Kerr, but they just didn't have Sam Kerr on the field. And we attribute that to the fact that, you know, they had 24 hours before the game and they'd already game planned, and that was it. And since then, they were forced to lean into their other strengths. And I think that what they were able to find is that they're actually a really damn good possession-based team. And they can lean into Gory and they can lean into Cooney Cross, who are just, I love both of them. And we've talked about how much we love that pairing so much. And that is this extra dynamic that Australia have been able to find. Like, what is that phrase, you know, like an angel in a devil's disguise or something like that. That's what Sam Kerr's injury was, because now they have both. And now they can beat you in two ways. They can be that explosive possession or explosive counterattack team that we have always seen them be. And they can be that possession team and go whenever they want to go. And that is so dangerous. And that's actually, I think, what we saw in this game here. They leaned into the possession until Sam Kerr came on, and then they went for it. We got to talk about Sam Kerr. It was so great to see her on the field. The first play she's on the field, and she creates an incredible opportunity. Just to see her do that, it just warmed my heart. And to be around the Matildas fans when that happened, I mean, just unreal. I'll hold off on the atmosphere because I think that's another conversation of itself. But I mean, I know you've got one more player to call out, and I want to call her out, but I want you to do it because
I have
star of the show.
I have so much pride. Also, I didn't want her to do that well because someone might steal her. But I have to say, for me, MVP, and others agreed with me, was Mackenzie Arnold. What a game that she had. She was great between the sticks. She was great at organising her defenders. She made some insane saves to keep it at 0-0. Granted, she tried to do a Neha and score her own penalty. It didn't quite work. But
it would have been too perfect. Like, that would have been the game-winning pen also. I mean, that
would have been too perfect. But she's managed. It wasn't like France missed penalties. She saved them. And then when we get to the penalty shootout, the fact that Dali had to retake it and she saved it again. Like, just,
oh my God.
Mackenzie Arnold had a baller of a game today. Like,
big time. Absolutely.
I have to ask you, though, as you were with Australians, what was it like when Kennedy's own goal went in for that brief second? Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, I remember there was a lot of confusion around what was going on, but for maybe a second or two, it fell absolutely dead silent. Like, you could have heard a pin drop. And there were probably thousands of people there, and it was dead silent, and you could just feel everybody's collective heart sink, because I think in that moment, everybody really thought that was it, that was the end. There wasn't a feeling of like, oh no, but that's all right, like, we've got time. It was just, that was it. Because that's what the type of game this was, right? It was so defensive oriented, and chances were hard to come by and goals were hard to come by, that one was gonna win it. And yeah, but it very quickly switched to confusion, and then switched to, I still don't understand what's going on, but I'm happy about it, so let's move on.
I will say one of my favourite moments, because now we can say it because obviously the Matildas won, but one of my favourite moments is obviously Kennedy's devastated because she thinks she's cost her team a place in the World Cup, and she hasn't seen it's been called back. So you see Maka go, it's fine, it didn't count, like pulling her up, being like, yeah, back in the game, it didn't count. Like, it was so adorable, because obviously she's like heartbroken, and Maka's like, get back off, it didn't count.
I love those two. If anybody has a Twitter, go to either Mackenzie Arnold or Alana Kennedy's, did I say Twitter? If anybody's a TikTok, go to Mackenzie Arnold or Alana Kennedy's TikTok, and it's those two and Caitlin Ford, and they've just been all over TikTok recently, and it is so good. I mean, this is what we talked about this team. Like those players, those people, they know each other so well. It's so deeply and for so long, and this is the moment for Australia. These are players who, because of when the Matildas and when the Australian Federation really started funneling money into this system, these players have actually been on the national team since they were like 15, 16, 17 years old. And that's how long they've known each other. They're all in their late 20s, early 30s, with the addition of the young players like Ellie Carpenter. But, I mean, before we move on to France, I just want to share, because that's partly why I'm here. I don't know how to describe. I'll do my best, but there were so many different places to watch. So the England Colombia game was at the Olympic Park Stadium, and there's so much around Olympic Park, but it's all kind of like bars and indoors. And 36 hours before kickoff, the government signed something that allowed bars to put big screens outside of their bars. And so the entire Olympic Park, there was a massive field with a massive Jumbotron screen outside of Olympic Park. And then in all of the bar areas, every single bar had set up a huge Jumbotron screen. And people were just packed in like to the brim. Like I was sitting for so long, I could not feel my legs, but it did not matter. People were just packed to the brim. Everybody got to that stadium early. Everybody was trying to get in for the 8:30 kickoff, literally at 8:30. But anybody that was there was just fully into it. The English that were there were riding the Matildas train. The US fans that were there were riding the Matildas train. And it was just a collective, honestly, like, I'm going to use the word joy, because everybody, it felt like watching a game live in a stadium. That's truly what the atmosphere was. It was as if we were all in the stadium together watching the Matildas play live. And that's really how it felt. And it was such a beautiful moment. And I posted just like the utter chaos of when the Matildas won. And all it was thousands of people jumping and screaming, and I hugged so many strangers that I don't know. I high-fived so many strangers that I don't know, but I know them now, and we're good friends, and it was just a beautiful moment, But we can't move on without talking about France. We're not trying to scoot past you, because, they did nothing wrong. What a devastating way to go out.
As I was saying, it was all about the Ds for France. It was Darley, D'Amelda, and defense. Because that's what France was. It was all about that. Like, D'Amelda, like, if you're not like a French national hero for that clearance in the first half, because clearly Australia have done what Australia do. They've pulled your goalkeeper out, and Fowler's got what she thinks is an open goal, and France's number 5 was like, oh no, you don't, and like absolutely just played off the field. Like these teams, this is why it's such a joy to watch, because these teams were so evenly matched and were just going at each other head to head.
They really were. That's such a good description.
And like Darley, she didn't feature in the first group game, and we said then and there, like, the spark for France was Darley when she came on. You need to bring her back. And yeah, she's started every single match since, and that's when we've seen the French team really come alive. Like, she's just got that fire about her and just brings up so much for the French team that it's just exciting. I do feel sorry for them, because this is like they've crashed out again.
Yeah, they crashed out in the quarters in 2019. They crashed out here then in the quarters in 2023. Both games, they played fantastic. 4 years ago, they played great. They could have moved on. This year, they played great. They could have moved on. So it is heartbreaking, but it is nice to see a French team that has turned it around and
got some joy. They've got some joy back, and
yeah.
all credit to Renat. You can't help but think, if the French Federation had pulled the trigger on the toxicity earlier, we would have seen a slightly different result. But they've got something great to build on. I think it seems like the players are happy, dare I say.
Yeah,
Again,
I know, it's always like, it seems from the outside is the key word, but it does. I do think there's something to be said for players who said, I am not going to go to this World Cup having changed their mind. He's wild on the sideline. I mean, he's a show in and of itself to watch.
I was gonna say, like, I tweeted it, like, there was like a little tete-a-tete between it wasn't the Australian coach, it was one of the coaching staff and Renard, like, and like the
he goes at the other coaching staff in like every game.
Yeah,
like,
and like the fourth official had to tell them off.
You should be yelling at.
Yeah, the fourth official had to like tell them off, and he's like, "I'm in my box," and she was like, "Move."
Calm down.
Yeah,
Frank, they need that fire, though. That might be why he's so good for them.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
So, from one quarterfinal game today to the second quarterfinal game today, which was England versus Colombia. Wow.
Wow.
I have to say.
Yeah,
wow.
no, I think we both were just thought for a moment. We're like, wow. Here's my question to you. Did that atmosphere translate through the television? Because it was just electric in that stadium.
Yes and no. So you could definitely feel it. Like, you definitely knew it was there. But unfortunately, because of where the mics were and the cameras were, all we got was the resounding boos.
Oh, that's so disappointing. It was mainly not boos.
Yeah, but that's the problem. That makes me sad because, like, from like what people were saying and stuff like that, it wasn't like that. But literally, for like most of the first half and towards the end of the second, all we got was the booing.
Oh, that's so disappointing. Because honestly, from having been in the stadium, I can't remember any boos. That's how few boos there were as compared to literally just probably 90 minutes of trade-offs between Colombians singing and dancing and cheering and me singing and dancing and cheering with the Colombians. I could only pick up on half of the chant. The second half of the chant, I was like, oh, shoot, my Spanish is gone. I don't understand the second half of it. And it traded off between that and English fan, kind of how the game did. But it was just like a very joyous atmosphere. And that's why I've fallen in love fully with the Colombian fans, is all there was singing and dancing and cheering and hugging. And it was beautiful. Like, it was an absolute spectacle of just pure joyous fandom. I really do credit the Colombians because they were singing and chanting and cheering the entire time.
You love it.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun. What an incredible game. It was back and forth, and quite frankly, for a moment, it didn't look like it was going to be England's. But let's start from the beginning, because I think we actually had very opposite views. You didn't think England started well at all, and I actually thought England were the better side to begin with.
I will say, I thought we played much better than we played against Nigeria, Haiti, and Denmark. I do think that, like, that rustiness that Millie Bright had has gone, and that back five is one of my favourite things that I've ever had. Like, it's just, it makes me happy. So I was happy with that performance, but again, we just don't break down physical teams very well. That's why I think so many England fans were annoyed.
We were texting about this. England have not played teams outside of Europe very well in this tournament whatsoever. They don't have a lot of experience playing teams outside of Europe. And I think that has come into play, where there is something about a style of play that they're not used to facing has actually been very hard for them to break down. Let's talk about when England conceded a goal. Because frankly, in the lead up to that, it's not that it doesn't matter, but it was pretty back and forth. I thought England were generally the better side, but Colombia might have had more of the dangerous chances. And that's kind of how it was. It was a push and pull of the game. And then right before halftime, just when everybody thinks we're headed in 0-0, Lacey Santos tucks away a goal. The stadium went absolutely ballistic. I think I saw one grown man with a Colombian jersey climb on the shoulders of another grown man with a Colombia jersey. It was the best thing in the world. And credit to England, just as much as it was, we're going to talk about it, such a fault of Colombia, but we have to credit England. You can very easily just kind of lock down your back line in that moment and say, okay, let's go into halftime, let's lick our wounds, and let's come out strong, and the second half is ours. And that is not what they did. It looked like that's what really lit the fire, where they were like, no, we're not doing this time. And they went for it. And in the 6 minute of stoppage time in the first half, Lauren Hemp, bouncing ball, bobbling ball, doesn't matter. It's in the box and it's bouncing away, and she took the authority and she pounced on it and she put it in the back of the net. And that, I think that moment was the inflection point in the game for England.
England needed that, I have to say. If we'd gone in 1-0 down at halftime, I don't think we would have come back. I just don't think that mental block. Though, as somebody pointed out to me, this is not the first time we've gone down to a Spanish-speaking side in the quarterfinals and managed to pull it back. But what we did, we have that resilience, and I think we had to go in on level pegging. We had to, like, for the England mentality. And England capitalised on what we've seen a lot of teams being unable to do, which is clear your lines. We say the same about Japan, which we'll come on to that, about versus Sweden. Clear your lines, and Colombia just didn't. And obviously Lauren Hemp was like, right, poke it home. And that was the, right, okay, we're back on an even keel. So the second half is like a brand new game.
I mean, I think you're nailing it in terms of the clear your lines. That was a huge downside to Colombia's game today, frankly.
And that's sad because they were so good. They were so good all tournament, but there was just that moment.
So I want to talk about that number 10 really quickly of England before we move on to Colombia, because Ella Toone obviously starting there, Lauren James out with a 2-game suspension, which we can chat about if you would like to. You know, I usually love what the England middle three do in terms of controlling the game. They really struggled.
We needed more of that double pivot with Stanway and Walsh, and we didn't quite have that. And I've not been convinced by Toone this whole tournament. I haven't. She's just not been on form.
I agree. Ella Toone hasn't had the greatest tournament, despite however much I absolutely love the Lioness videos with her, because she's a hoot. I thought Alessia Russo played a great game. I thought she brought a physicality element to England, which obviously England aren't lacking physicality. You know, Lucy Bronze, Millie Bright. But I thought Alessia Russo brought the physicality that England needed in that front line, and she ended up getting a goal out of it. I thought this was a really good game for Alessia. Let's talk about Colombia. My heart breaks for this team. And at the same time, I think maybe we can just say, what an incredible tournament. I don't think anybody expected this from them. I think people expected maybe them to advance, but not to advance to the quarterfinals, and quite frankly, not just put up a fight against England. Like, this could have been their game had one or two things gone differently. This team has such a bright future. They have so many young stars. Lacey Santos was, as always, incredible this game. I know Linda Caicedo rightfully gets, the stardom of it, but Lacey Santos has been so key. Catalina Usme also just unreal for this team. Those attacking three, Linda Caicedo, Lacey Santos, and Usme, are as dominant and as dangerous as any attacking three in this entire game. And I think you nailed it when you said that them not clearing their lines was quite the detriment for them. And I'm also going to add in what I said about, I don't remember what team, but just that this is the moment in the tournament where we start to see investment from the federation separate teams. And in this exact game, you could see how tired Colombia were getting. And for me, when I see that, and I know Colombia haven't played that many more minutes than England have played, you can't help but think that this is investment in the team. That means fitness coaches. That means trainers. That means more games together. That means more training camps. It's all of that. And that's one of the things that separated these teams today. All right, from the second two quarterfinals, backwards in time to the first two quarterfinals that, quite frankly, were just much less interesting. That's just the reality of it. We had Spain versus the Netherlands. Spain took that 2-1, and Japan versus Sweden. Sweden took that 2-1. Now, we did a Patreon with our good friend David Astil from Total Football Analysis. He's one of the ones who actually puts together the best 11. So head on over to our Patreon for a very in-depth breakdown of both of these games. And here we're just going to go through these a little bit faster. So let's start with the first game in Spain versus the Netherlands. As I mentioned, Spain took this 2-1. This went to extra time, but did not go to pens. And quite frankly, the most interesting part of this game were the 30 minutes of extra time.
It was so boring. I'm glad I didn't get up for it.
Highlights of this game, quite frankly, I don't know where to start. I mean, highlights of this game were that there were some pens that were called that maybe shouldn't have been called, some pens that were not called that maybe should have been called. Quite frankly, at the end of the day, I think that the better team over the 120 minutes won in Spain. But neither team looked convincing. And let's start with the Netherlands.
Yes, Netherlands were missing DVD, is the simple answer. She's never not been in the starting lineup since she got called up.
Yeah, absolutely. She has developed into, quite frankly, their most consistently threatening player. And not only did they need her tactically, but like you mentioned, they needed her spark because the Netherlands looked flat. They had no energy, and they looked flat in the South Africa game, and they just weren't able to flip that switch on. It's not something that you can turn off and turn on that easily, and they just were not really able to flip it on. And on to Spain. Spain was doing Spain things. They were dominating, and there were no goals to show for it. I thought that they looked a lot better in terms of that in the first half. I really thought that they had created a lot of chances and that they were on their way to scoring quite a few goals in the second half. But they did not, and we just have to say, in this tournament, their Achilles heel has been their back line, and it will be their detriment if they go out. That is why they will go out. They are absolutely missing Mape Leon, and they have not figured out a steady back four, or I'll just add in a steady back five because they've changed out their goalkeeper halfway through this tournament. And teams that can figure out how to break through the midfield enough to exploit Spain's back line, it's over.
Apart from the Japan game, I don't feel like Spain have been tested. And so that's how they've got as far as they have. They've got a real test in their semi-final, and I think they're going to come unstuck.
Yeah, I think, we talk about teams peaking, and in a tournament, you need to peak at the right moment, and you need that energy to build. And I think that we saw the Netherlands, quite frankly, peak against the US and fall since. And I think that this might be where we see Spain peaking.
I would agree with that 100%.
All right, and on to the second game, Sweden versus Japan. Sweden took this 2-1. It did not go to extra time. And quite honestly, this was an interesting game in the sense that this was not the game anybody expected from either team. I don't think anybody expected this from Sweden, and I don't think anybody expected this from Japan.
Problem is I feel like Japan set up like they did against Spain and then got penalised for it because Sweden were willing to go ahead. They were willing to push and attack and get those long balls behind, and that's where Japan came unstuck.
I think you nailed it. Japan's game against Spain, they were able to do that because Spain aren't a direct team and Sweden is direct, and Japan were made to pay for that. And we can't move on from these quarterfinals without finishing with, I think this is a great team to finish this conversation with. Let's talk about Sweden.
Yeah, I think Sweden were spectacular in this game. Like they'd come off like not a great round of 16 game, and then they came into this game and you thought they were going to get absolutely decimated, and they were like, no, cannot count us out. And they just played brilliantly. They pinched in everybody so that they had more play towards on the wings. So they moved everybody more central. So they really compacted that midfield, which really annoyed the Japanese players. So they could really run those wings. And the fact that we've got a centre-back as running for the golden boot because, 4 goals. 4 goals. As somebody pointed out, it's giving Arnold Clark energy. But it's amazing. So, they just absolutely nailed it. So, fair play to Sweden. They've earned their place in their semi.
They certainly have. And the only thing that I'll add about Sweden is that, I mentioned momentum and teams having to peak at the right moment. Sweden are a team that do truly feel like they have a lot of momentum right now. They're a team that on the field are carrying momentum in a scary way. They were firing on all cylinders against a team that was labeled as the best team in this tournament so far. Let's not forget that. And then off the field, look, there's always this element to teams who win the World Cup where there's just a cohesion to the unit. That's part of why sports are so beautiful, is because, you can have as many good players as you want. Let's point to Norway. And if your locker room's not cohesive, if that team isn't a team, it's just not going to work. And this Swedish locker room, you can't help but watch those videos and just see how much joy they have and how much fun they're having. And that can't be understated. That matters. And for that alone, I would put my money on Sweden. That maybe this could be the year. We talked about with Hedvig Lindahl, there's just been an energy, a mentality missing in Sweden up until now. And it doesn't feel like it's missing anymore. It really doesn't. I think that this year it has clicked and it is there.
Yeah, and it's beautiful to see. It is beautiful to see them come up.
It is. It really is. It's hard for me to not kind of fall in love with them right now.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Sarah's a traitor to her country. She'll not be allowed to be back to the US. So, for our final section, we are in our storylines because it's the big games now. It is the semi-finals, baby. So we have got 2 amazing games coming up, starting off with Sweden versus Spain. Sweden have proved to be the dark horse of this competition and seem to have hit their stride at the right time, with their goalkeeper having the tournament of her career at the moment. It will be interesting to see what the strikers can do up front.
And Spain, against all odds, Spain has made it to their first semi-final ever. This team has been brilliant on attack, but weak defensively. Can they shore this up, as we know that they can score goals?
And the other semi-final is the clash of the titans. It is Australia versus England. England make their 3rd consecutive semi-final in the World Cup after a tough game against Colombia. While it might not be the England that we saw in the Euros, they certainly have grit and determination, battling all the way to a final.
And finally, the home nation of Australia, otherwise known as the Matildas. This is the first time a home nation has made it to the semifinals since 2003. The Matildas may not have taken the easy route, but my goodness, do they have faith. Defensively sound and with goals to boot, you can't help but favor them to go all the way. That is it for us here for the quarterfinals. This tournament is not over. Semi-finals to go, so stay tuned. Our episode, which will cover both semi-final games, will be dropping on Thursday, everybody. Thursday, so stick by us and we will see you on Thursday to talk Spain, Sweden, Australia, England. And for us here at the Women's Soccer Show, I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.